Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I am your Loremaster, here today for a continued journey of the countries of Avestan. Today, we move east of Cheliax and Nadal to go through two nations who are fully intertwined with each other. Well, one of those nations. It's a 2-week event. This week, we have the nation of Molthune. The region now known as Molthune began as one might expect. It was an area inhabited by Gremlins. Well, going back farther, the Fangwood was elven territory, but they all left during Earthfall. And then orcs came and swept the land, and then dwarves rose and claimed territory in the mountains, here being where the Sky Citadel of Cregadon was established. But then the Gremlins, and Fae, but they'll be mentioned later. All was peaceful till Taldor's armies of expansion knocked at the doors. The people of this territory managed to repel the second, but were conquered by the third. It appears anyway. Some sources I have seen show Taldor conquered the entire Lake and Carton region, except Drama. But sources on the two nations themselves say that they remained independent for a time. Either way, this changed the two events. The rise of the nation of Lair, which had been settled in the north of the area, and the newly established Cheliax conquered the area in the Everwar, formally establishing the province they named Molthune. However, when nations began pulling away from Cheliax during its civil war, Molthune quickly took the opportunity to craft its own nation. However, Cheliaxian loyalists and assassination attempts convinced the nation that it had to be strong to survive. And so the nation quickly became one of vast armies and harsh laws. The nation was divided into 11 provinces, with the imperial governor himself serving as a 12th voice. However, the laws led to reliance on the farmers and trappers of the north, who quickly began thinking they might have traded one Cheliax for another. They protested, but everyone just said their sacrifice was for the good of the nation, and so they instead began sabotaging the shipments to the south. It worked for years, but one shipment of spoiled meat convinced the South to send an army up north to put down this Fangwood rebellion quickly. However, it turned out to be anything but quick. But the rest of that story is for next week. When Molthune broke away from Cheliax, it determined it needed to be strong to survive. Therefore, the nation became an army, with those of the highest rank leading the nation. In current Molthune, with the rebellion in the north, there are currently 9 general lords who each are in control of one of the provinces, with one of them being the imperial governor. The general lords are positioned basically for life, and when they are replaced, the lords move to the province where they are most needed, even if they know nothing of the local people. And when it's time for a new imperial governor, the other 8 vote which among them should take the position, until one nominee has 5 votes, with the outgoing governor being the deciding vote if necessary. So far, this has gone without issue. However, some of the policies of the current imperial governor, Margaret Tallis, had some fearing the next election will be more difficult. Not that they have too much to worry about. More than any governor or general, the nation is run by a series of laws which would make old Cheliax proud. It takes weeks to do even the simplest tasks, and one mistake can force one to start from square one. Molthune, though it lacks the power to do so yet, is building themselves to be another expansionist power. While the current efforts are focused on Nemothus, this seems to be the only thing keeping them from testing waters on other nations around Lake and Carton. And as for the inward functionality of the nation, it relies heavily on the work of indentured servants, there being a complex system in place for them to serve their time and potentially work to being considered citizens. Outside is pretty much just assume it's as slavery by their name, and it cannot be said that they are that far off. Now, considering the ongoing war between Molthune and Nemothus, which is important to both these nations and these videos, I believe the appropriate thing to do would be to go over the nation's general tactics to get a better read on the way each thinks. Molthune is a nation of order. It trains the soldiers to be disciplined, obedient, and honorable, and to work them to be as well trained as possible. They do not simply attack because there is an opportunity, but every movement instead needs to be thought of by the higher-ups in their grand plan. Because of who the enemies are, they make extensive use of scouts, both to try to determine the movements of the enemies, as well as try to figure out the terrain, which always gives them issue. They attack at day, because night gives their opponents another advantage, and only attack at night with liberal use of alchemist fire. They prefer melee fighters with heavy shields and caster support, and they use banners to signal and send orders even in a pitched battle. Now, with a nation this week with 9 clear regions, let's go through them quickly. Starting with the capital, Anarath. This place is known for one thing more than others. It is beautiful. Here, people come from miles around just to see the buildings, and architects are the local rock stars. It also, of course, is the center of the forceful order of the rest of the nation. The city is divided into various sections, even more rigid than other large cities, and many of these areas require special permits to be allowed in. The ruler of this region is the imperial governor himself, the current one being Melphine. He is a man who has proven to be a long-term thinker. His policies set in ways to increase the country's population, to help it overcome many of its shortcomings, and finally bring it to the conqueror he believes they should be. Right next to the region is the Backrock Forest region. The capital here is Triple-Nay. This town is famous for egalitarian policies. The region's general lord, Garen Jarek, is a paladin who is strongly against slavery, where he forms the laws in a way to give the laborers their more rights than anywhere else in the nation, and he works to eliminate slavery, indentured servantry in his region. However, his region is not exactly his. For the forest the region is named after is home to the Fae. And not Fae courts, but wild Fae who just want to live in peace. Like a little Nemothus smack dab in the middle of the country. There have been attempts to clear out the Fae, but all went poorly, so that is on the back burner for now. And that's not even going into the Wreath of Stars, manor of a former Fae ruler who died in Northfall, leaving only his personal executioner alive to rule their part of the forest. Which brings us to our first side tangent, the part of the show where everything goes wrong. Today, let's start with a kind of Fae which lives within the Backrock Forest, Gremlins. On our side of the pages, Gremlin is a recent term, being invented in World War II to explain the unexplainable mechanical and mental problems of pilots. It was here that a man named Roald Dohl first heard the term, and used the term for his children's book, The Gremlins, the first edition being published with the help of Walt Disney. In Pathfinder, Gremlin are Fae who work to destroy civilization in various ways. I will not go through them individually, as I already have a long list near this video. But things they are known for include controlling insects and other pests, causing swelling and hair growth, theft, tricking people into destroying their things, causing bad luck, eating books, sabotaging ships, neutralizing certain magics, and sowing general discord. All the rest takes us to a familiar sight, the Mindspin Mountains. We were just on the other side last week. The capital city here is Breganaz, run by General Lord Cochai Sabine. This investigator has ambitions of being the next imperial governor, and therefore spends most of her time traveling and working to raise her popularity. The local archbanker of Abadar is instead in charge of the day-to-day, and a strong belief in his god has led to his goal of continuously building new houses to maximize the amount of people who can move in, whenever they do start moving in. There are 2 castles in the mountains of note. The first, Windwatch Castle, is home to believers of Gazra, who believe in getting prophecies from the wind. The other, Broken Shield Castle, belongs to a soldier whose career was cut short when she took an arrow to the, arm, and believes the military purposely was trying to get rid of her. The next province is the Molthune side of the Umbro Basin. As known last week, the basin itself is a dangerous location where shadow storms, which are portals to the plane of shadows, open at odd intervals, potentially destroying anything unfortunate enough to be caught in them. Being built at a safe distance, we have Dormark, the provincial capital. It is home to both the local fetchling population in Molthune, as well as General Lord Francine Mega. She is a rogue who is in charge of the nation's spying operations. What exactly this details is unknown, but her paperwork is always perfect, so her higher-ups ask few questions. This region is also home to the Trilmagit Towers, a trinity of wizard towers recently built by 3 brothers, but whose teleportation networks accidentally tapped into the lair of a local lich. Which brings us to our second side tangent, and also the big reveal. You see, this is the second video in a 3-part theme. What is it? Well, Book of the Dead is coming out next week, and we have known since the end of last month the countries that will be in the lore section of the book. However, not all places of the dead get mentioned, only the ones with noticeable populations of undead. However, we like mention of Dohl, despite certain undeads enjoying the Shadowy Lands. And we do not have either Molthune or Nemothus, despite, well, that is more of a next week topic. Either way, last week we spoke of a rare undead, the Colossus. Today, continuing the trend of talking of undead in slightly less undead lands, we have the Lich. This is a big name, and will appear for sure in the Book of the Dead, so I will not go through as a list, but will instead give some history. The oldest creature in mythology who matches the description of a Lich is Cochai the Deathless from Russian mythology, though he technically was not undead. He still was unkillable because he kept his soul hidden in a needle. The term Lich, in turn, first appeared in Clark Ashton Smith's Lovecraftian works to refer to any corpse in his works, derived from the old Germanic Lair, L-I-H, for corpse. This later became an undead magic user in 1969's The Sword of the Sorcerer, and the father of Fantasy Token had the main villain of his series, Sauron, bind his soul to the One Ring, and the Nazguls actually have the look. And of course, Liches were brought into the original D&D, and the rest is history. Back on the main topic, going along south of the Mender, we go into the Mender mountain region. This is the newest province to be added. The city-state of Ketchine faced poor crops and joined the country to survive. However, they still act independently, and chafe at the strictness of the nation. The General Lord, Irina Klim, is the youngest General Lord ever nominated, but the fighter has much work cut out for her dealing with the rebellious tendencies of the locals, to the point she is considering public execution. Swinging back north, we have the Shriekwood. Unlike other regions of lush natural resources, it's a sparse shrubland. And instead of farms, this place is kingdom for bandits, with the most common kind of bandits being those of evil who tried to join the military and washed out. The provincial capital is Cochai, the third largest city in the nation, and just as beautiful. It is home to the nation's most prestigious academy. Many of the nation's non-Navy sailing vessels, and of General Lord Vernus Leocarcinus, the proud conservative voice of the council, who rails against the changes to tradition brought by the current imperial governor. He also has a disguised bronze dragon as a bodyguard. Some think that this bodyguard originally came from the Palace of Virtues, a monastery in this area where disguised bronze dragons train among the monks, but true origin is unknown. Which brings us to our third side tangent. We are back with our old friends, the dragons. On the topic of bronze dragons, let's go through metallic dragons. Metallic dragons are the basic good-lined dragons, and are more likely to be on the side of humans than against them. That said, they still love treasure, and they still think they're better than everyone else because they are dragons. But no one's perfect. So starting off, we have the brass dragon. This dragon loves networking, but while blue dragons do so as manipulators, brass dragons really just like having friends. Continuing the above comparison to blue dragons, brass prefer the desert to make their homes. This is helped by their ability to manipulate wind and sand of their environment at will. All metallic dragons radiate auroras. The bronze dragon radiates one of fire. Likewise, all metallic dragons have 2 breath attacks, one elemental and one debilitating. For brass dragons, for example, it is fire and sleep gas. Finally, old enough dragons can call for a djinn. Next up, we have what brought us here today, the bronze dragons, who are lovers of all things knowledge. They are amphibious, and they prefer to set their lairs on coastlines. Unsurprisingly, they also have the ability to manipulate water, and breathe it, of course. They gain advantage in watery areas as an aura of electricity, and their breath weapon matches, though they also can breathe repulsion gas, which makes opponents flee. Third dragon, we have the copper dragons, the party dragons, who just like having fun. They live in hills, preferably rocky places where they haven't because of their natural abilities to climb. They naturally have roguish talents, being able to craft and find traps and have uncanny dodge. Their roar is not elemental, but slow, and they have a breath of slowing gas as well as acid. But the truly most dangerous thing to escape the mouse are jokes. Their comedy is able to affect everyone around with hideous laughter, or even cause them to laugh themselves to death. The next, the silver dragons, honorable and self-restraining dragons known as the paladins of the dragons. Had lots of dragons in that sentence, but they prefer to make their home atop mountains, especially those in cold places, and have the power to walk in clouds and see through fog. Their aura is a cold one, and they breathe either cold or paralysis breath. And being the paladins, the scales can be reflective armor, and they can keep fighting even if they die. Finally, gold dragons. These are the wisest of dragons, working to solve problems for even their evil kin. They actually live in open fields, either creating the nests on the surface or in sinkholes. They have the ability to find and to enchant gems. Their aura is fire. They breathe fire and weakening gas, and they have the ability to talk to the gods. Going back to the main topic, 7th, going the farthest east we can, we have that Shroud Forest. Here lies Ilmus, the second largest city, and home to the nation's navy. The general lord here is Walder Reskett, a fighter who leads the navy, though his main duty is to ensure it is run in a way which does not spook any of its neighbors. Except Nelmathis, of course. The woods themselves are home to ancient trees which are used as to construct these ships. However, it seems sabotage has been going on in the logging camps as of late, with the markers pointing towards some kind of fay. Next, we find the major farmland of the area, the plains of Molthune, though here is not enough of a population for the country to convert entirely to farmlands. It should be noted this is an area known for the use of skeletal constructs, especially since they are known to never ever being taken over by any outside force and used to stalk innocent people. Never happens. The providential capital is Resha, primarily a military outpost with soldiers going towards the front lines, run by General Lord Harwin Perrin. Once an alchemist with a penchant for blowing up both sides, she has mellowed out, though she worries some of the passing soldiers might one day bring her past coming back to haunt her. This area is also home to Trade Cross, a small farming hamlet where two of the major trade roads cross. Also the Imperial Prison, where criminals are sent to be rehabilitated, and of course, Witherbark Forest, a source of lumber now being dominated by a colony of myceloids. Finally, we have Meredith, also known as the Border. This is the small strip of land that Molthune hopes to eventually permanently expand during the battle with Nelmathis. The General Lord is the longest-serving General Lord, Rasper Cirno. The Cavalier prefers to lead from the front, and is known for being cold, calculating, and cruel. He also never returns to Fort Ramgate, the only real territory that makes up this area, instead always trying to push farther. Of course, defense is being left to mercenaries, and it is often a game of spies. Though they did come close to that one time the information was used to make headway when Goblin mercenaries pushed back, only to slaughter civilians against the Molthune's code, so dismissed. Which brings us to our final side tangent. Because of the region we are in, I cannot go through all of this without mentioning hobgoblins. In original fairy tales, hobgoblins are much different than they are usually portrayed. Starting with, if you have seen my video on the origins of the different races, hobgoblins actually means, well, hob actually means good. So hobgoblins mean good goblins. Then they were portrayed as shorter goblins until Tolkien made the hobgoblins taller. Getting into Pathfinder specifically, they were born when the Cantorian Spring, a staff made by dead goddess Cantorius, was used by dead devil Canzurant to transform regular goblins into stronger and more calculating hobgoblins. As for more specifics about hobgoblins, well, for those with a more current map, you'll probably expect to hear more. By also looking at a map, you also know that's a topic for next week. So, That brings us to the end of this video, but not to the end of this war. So come back next week. We're going to talk about the other half of this endless war. See you then.